Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today our third campaign from the Barons Wars rules, Lackland Goes North. Again a narrative campaign for the Barons War written by Tom McCready, editing Andy Hobday, layout and production Steve Beckett, miniature design Paul Hicks, painting Daniel Wengman, HMV Workbench, Darren Lingington, Jen Allam and Ben McIntyre from Brush Demon. So let's start.
The recovery of Normandy and the renewal of the war with the hated French weighed heavily on the king's mind. When word reached him that the Scots planned to enter into an alliance with France, he acted most decisively, summoning his nobles and preparing an expedition to intimidate his northern cousin into submission. William, sometimes called the Rough on account of his prowess on the battlefield, had entered into his dotage, and John believed he could easily be bullied into submission. That is a fictional excerpt from Roger of Wendover's Chronicle, describing the events leading up to the Treaty of Norham in 1209. Bad neighbours and borders. This campaign is concerned with the squabbles between neighbouring powers, namely England and Scotland. The scenarios follow a campaigning army into hostile territory, securing supplies and seeking battle with the enemy. You could easily use this campaign to recreate Frederick I's Barbarossa exploits in Italy, or some other corner of Europe. Like the other campaign packs in this series, the scenarios grow in complexity as the campaign continues, representing the confrontation between England and Scotland escalating towards a final confrontation at Norham, outside of Berwick-upon-Tweed.
So now we heard the introduction. We go to the campaign with the battles, the three battles, Thinning the Herd, Caught Napping, and Battle is Joined. A little bit a narrative of the campaigns, and we know that in every campaign, this campaign booklet starts with 500 points, 750 points, and ending with a big battle of 1,000 points. Now let's talk about the protagonist, and I give you back to Simon.
John Lackland, King of England. After unsuccessfully attempting to rebel against his brother's royal administrators whilst Richard was participating in the Third Crusade, John was proclaimed King of England in 1199 after Richard's death. War broke out with France again in 1202, where John achieved early victories, but shortages of military resources and his treatment of Norman, Breton and Anjou nobles resulted in the loss of his empire in northern France by 1204. Much of the next decade was spent attempting to regain these lands, resulting in the raising of huge revenues via taxes and rebuilding of continental alliances. John's attempt to defeat Philip in 1214 failed at the Battle of Beauvais, due to a French victory over John's allies. Returning to England, John faced a rebellion by many of his barons, unhappy with his taxes and his treatment of many of England's most powerful nobles during the campaign on the continent. Although both John and the barons agreed to a peace treaty in 1215, the Magna Carta, neither side had any intention of complying with its conditions. Civil war broke out with the northern barons, who, aided by Prince Louis of France, caused John's initial successes, most notably the siege of Rochester Castle, to descend into a stalemate. By the time of his death in 1216, John was regarded as the worst king to have ever sat on England's throne due to his treacherous, tyrannical and cruel nature. It is recorded that John took part in numerous battles and engagements, which goes against his cowardly portrayal, finding success with siege warfare in particular. King John had substantial dealings with the Knights Templar. At the time of the Magna Carta, not only did Ulmeric de St. Maur, the Master of the Temple, accompany him at the signing, but King John was also residing with the Templars when the barons first presented their demands.
So here we have the equipment of King John, what he can be equipped with, and some command upgrades for the king. And now let's see what Simon has to say about William the Rough, King of Scotland.
William the Rough, King of Scotland. Born circa 1142, William the Rough, also known as the Lion in later medieval chronicles, has the distinction of being Scotland's second longest reigning monarch prior to the Act of Union in 1707. His reign is characterised by a near constant state of war with his Plantagenet neighbours and several risings against his rule. William's reputation as a fearsome warrior was cemented at the Battle of Alnwick in 1174, where he single-handedly charged the English army, bellowing, "Now we shall see which of us are good knights." By 1209, William was approaching the age of 67, a remarkable age for somebody of the period. His grip on Scotland seems to have slipped, evidenced by his willingness to negotiate with John at Norham, and the exorbitant costs he agreed to pay. However, even in his advanced age, he would have remained a formidable opponent.
Here we have William the Rough's, again, equipment. How you will equip, it's up to you really, and this is the fascinating thing with these rules, that you can have a different battle even with the same characters, depending on how you will equip your character. Let's go for the first battle.
Thinning the herd. An army marches on its stomach, an adage that rings true throughout the history. Before the science of military logistics was properly developed, soldiers had to live off the land. This often meant sending foraging parties into villages, pillaging whatever they could find from the unfortunate inhabitants. This anonymous Northumbrian village is in the process of being ravaged by a raiding party, who are attempting to make off with a few heads of scrawny cattle. The raiding parties are being commanded by trusted retainers, as the two kings wouldn't sully their royal persons with such humble work.
So here we have retinue 1 of Archibald, Lord of Douglas, so it's not the king, and then Roger de Lacy, Sheriff of Yorkshire. These are the two protagonists here, not the kings. And here down, it's a quite straightforward map. Something I've been saying, that I hope campaigns like this have straightforward maps, so people can don't have to have elaborate terrain pieces in order to manage to play. But even though you can change a little bit the terrain, I don't think that will be an issue. Here is a setup, deployment, game duration, special rules, and victory conditions in this page. And let's go to the second battle. It's called Cold Napping, and it's 750 points, and it's back to Simon.
Court napping. An encamped army is a vulnerable army. With its baggage decamped, camp followers milling around, and troops busying themselves with the mundanity of military life, the enemy could wreak absolute havoc should they get in amongst the tents. In the dead of night, on an isolated piece of Scottish heathland, John's army is preparing to bed down for the night. Cementing his reputation as a lacklustre general, the English king has failed to post sentries, send out patrols, or build a proper palisade, allowing the Scots to get within spitting distance before launching their assault.
So here we have the retinue of William the Rough of Scotland and John Lackland. So in the second battle, the kings appear. Obviously, the English are more. Here is the campaign map. Obviously, you need a kind of, I see here, a tent camp. Yes, you need a couple of stuff more. The setup, first turn, deployment, game duration, all this information, and then victory conditions you have here with very beautiful miniatures. Really beautiful miniatures from Futso. And now the last battle, battled is joined with 1,000 points. And let's go back to Simon.
Battle is joined. Large battles like Bovines or Lincoln were relatively uncommon in the medieval period. Savvy commanders preferred fighting lightning raids and sieges, where they could exercise more control over the proceedings. Here, outside the town of Norham, King John has a point to make. The rebellious Scots must be taught a lesson, their army put to the sword to dissuade their aged king from venturing south again. Weary from the campaign of raids and ambushes, both sides meet at the appointed place. Foot soldiers are shoved into line whilst knights mount their steeds. Brightly coloured banners and comparisons flutter in the morning breeze. A trumpet sounds, and both armies lurch into motion.
So here we have the retinues of William the Rough. Again, the kings appear here. They're big battles of 1,000 points. And then you go a bit further down and you see the deployment. Again, the terrain is quite straightforward. The setup, the objective, first turn, duration, special rules. And then again, the victory conditions. Here we have concluded the campaign. It says if William the Rough wins, or if John Lackland wins, or if in the event of a draw. And here let's go to a pending Appendix 1, additional units, King's Guard. So basically here, the rules provide you with additional units with characteristics that they're not included in the main rulebook. And that's quite interesting because you can have more variety. You have here in the next one, Highland Cateran, I think if I pronounce it correctly. You will correct me, all my friends correct me. My English. So again, equipment and abilities, so more soldiers, and then mounted borderers, again more units, quite interesting. I see a lot of characteristics and weapons. This is provided from, and you can use them in other battles obviously, foot borderers, with again information about equipment options and their abilities. And here are the miniatures, very nice. And then you have outlaws, again with equipment and abilities. So an extra army list that you can use for your armies and battles. Bandits and petty criminals, that's quite nice to have. And then you go to Appendix 2, an army marches in on its stomach. And let's hear Simon.
The business of supplying an army in the field is difficult when your supply train relies on lumbering oxen and heavily laden wagons. Many soldiers are forced to live off the land, foraging and plundering whatever they need to survive. To represent this, the first two scenarios of this campaign have supply tokens as part of their objectives. In between games, assign all available supply tokens to the groups participating in the next game. An infantry group consumes 1 supply token, whilst a mounted group consumes 2. Each unit that is not assigned a supply token must roll 1d10 on the table below. Mounted groups can roll 2 dice and pick the highest result.
So basically here what you have is a very interesting thing, is that you can add attrition to your rules, and by rolling a d10 you have results, slim pickings, decent fare, a veritable feast, a golden goose, that will basically influence your campaign. A very, very nice idea, I think, innovative idea that you can use. If you follow this campaign series, you can see that there are bits and pieces that the designers give you that you can use and to create your own, it's not exactly campaigns, but battles with sequence. And in the end of this PDF, you have the terrain description, and again, a description of terrain, what cover it provides, and the terrain effects. It's always good to have it there as a consolidated table. So this is from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed, a little bit different with the narration of my friend Simon. He was a great narrator. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the series. There is one more campaign. If you're interested, I will purchase it. It's £3 only. It's nothing. And I can showcase it for you as well. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week, and bye-bye.